Alright, peace and greetings YouTubers. So welcome to another edition of In the News. Let's just jump right into it. I want to start with this Vicky White story before it gets too old to talk about. And I'll be honest, I definitely feel that this is going to be one of those stories they turn into a Lifetime original made-for-TV movie in about 18 more months. So somebody come back to this channel in November of 2023 and tell me how the movie was. I'm sure they'll get like Scarlett Johansson or somebody to play Vicky. But this was a very interesting story to follow because it just goes to show that people sometimes are willing to literally do any and everything once emotions and feelings and all that kind of kick into play. And so this is the story about the corrections officer in Alabama who worked at the prison, and she fell into a situationship fling entanglement with this guy Casey White. Now listen, they're not related, they just had the same last name. But I personally don't know what it is this man was able to say to her or do to her or what kind of game he spit. But man, whatever he did, it clicked for her because she threw it all away for this guy. And it's crazy because I don't think they were able to physically do anything until after they would have made the escape, just based on how the prison and stuff was set up. And so she was literally operating off of just anticipation. She was in heat. She was like, look, I'm ready. Let's do this. And so when you look at the logistics of everything, like this woman filed for retirement. She had been working in the system for 17 years. She said, I'm out. I got things to do, specifically one person to see because we about to bounce up out of here. And so, you know, she filed for retirement. She sold her house for $95,000, way under the market value. That's how pressed she was to get off with Casey and run off into the distance, right? I know somebody was happy they got that deal because you know the way that the housing market is right now. It's chaos. Like everything is high. So $95,000. Oh, I'm sure that sold in the same day that it went on the market. But anyway, sold her house, sold her car, filed for retirement, had a whole bunch of weapons with her too. AR-15, shotgun, 45, 9 mil. I'm like, oh, she was ready to like set it off. And so what was so interesting to me though, as I was reading the details, so they ended up being discovered in Indiana after 11 days. And first of all, for me, it was like, if you're going to break somebody out of prison and y'all escape, why are you still in the United States after 11 days? Like, you should have already been almost fluent in Spanish at this point. You should have been well settled into Mexico by now, okay? I'm just saying, the way I would have been using Selena lyrics to learn the language, okay? No me queda más. No me queda más. I think that's I Don't Love You Anymore, but I would have somehow made that work at the gas station when I was asking for 20 on pump 5. I would have made it work. But anyway, I was like, y'all are still here? But, man, the other part that really got me, though, was like, I don't know how you think you can really escape with an inmate that's 6'9". Like, he's 6'9". We see him. Like, bruh, he's tall. Where did y'all think y'all were going? You can't sneak off with nobody that tall. That's something you need to do with somebody that's like 5'6", 5'7", 5'8" in that club. You don't try to do no elaborate crime and then you on all of the media outlets. You got the feds looking for you, the state government's looking for you, everybody and their mama's looking for you, and you're on the run with somebody that's 6'9". Y'all can't blend in anywhere. Like, where do y'all go? You can't even go to the zoo. You know what I mean? Like, he can't even stand by the giraffes because he's still going to stand out, all right? Like, I know for sure as a child, he couldn't play nobody's hide and seek because everybody could see him. So, you know, if you're going to do some crime and stuff, you're going to have to blend in, right? You're going to run off with somebody 6'9". You couldn't find nobody else in the prison to break out with? Like, I'm sorry. So I was just like, interested. It was like, where did y'all think y'all were going to be going? It reminds me of this time in elementary. There used to be this guy that used to, like, be like the recess duty at school, you know, like when they have the adults that make sure the kids aren't trying to kill each other at the playground. He had to be like 6'8", and it was crazy because he could see everything at the playground. You couldn't do nothing could get past him, okay? He'd just be like, and you just knew to straighten up and not do whatever you were doing that was out of pocket, because you know at that age, first, second, third grade, everybody wanted to play Power Rangers, so we were out there running and high on and really kicking and punching each other and stuff. And yeah, he used to shut that down. He just would be standing up there watching over us, kind of like that random doll thing that was in Squid Game. The same kind of energy. Couldn't get nothing past him. I forgot his name, but I just remember he was so tall. And we just always noticed him. Like, even if we weren't at recess, if there was like a school assembly or something, you could still see him amongst the crowd. Like, that's how Casey must have looked in public. I guess when they got found out at the hotel, like they had paid a homeless person to kind of use an ID so that they could get, you know, a 14-day stay at the motel. See, y'all ain't even serious about doing your crime. Why are you still in the country this long? So y'all were willing to stay 14 days. Like, y'all deserve to be caught. But then, long story short, you saw they got caught. She ended up wrapping it up on herself. It was a wrapper for her. And so, you know, he's been, you know, snatched back up and I think extradited back to Alabama. But that was off the chain right there. The things people will do for love, like, it couldn't have been me. I would have just had to stay single in that moment because I'm good. And you just threw it all away. I mean, goodness. She said, I'm retired. I'm ready to go. Let's balance. And then when you saw what the man looked like, I was like, well, let me see at least what it looked like. You did all that for this Abraham Lincoln looking man. You just, all right, Vicky. Well, you talked to, I don't know where you went after you offed yourself, but, you know, to each his own. Couldn't have been me. That's all I'm saying. You're going to try to run off with somebody at 6'9". Jeez, that's like super tall. You know, maybe if he was 6'2", you could have got away with it, but 6'9", everybody sees him. Y'all can't go nowhere. Like, what do y'all? He can't even fit in the car. Like, I'm not trying to fry at people that are taller than like that. I'm just saying that's some height there. Okay, he would just have to pretty much hang around like a college basketball court, because all them folks be like 8'1". Anyway. Side note, for those who are a part of my book club, the next session is on May 16th, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We're still doing The Color of Law. We are on chapter 5 through 9, all right? For those who want to join, I pretty much just post a Zoom link on my community tab, and you guys can join once I post the Zoom link. For those who have not started the book, if you're still in 1 through 4, you're welcome to catch up. If there's moments in 1 through 4 that maybe you want to address, I'm totally cool with you bringing it up during our 5 through 9 session. So feel free to jump in if you want to participate. Anyway, moving on. So in lighter news, this has been my favorite clip I've seen all week. So let's just go to the clip.
Dang, I want to knock her.
She ran out her shoes. Go Talaya. Go Lay. Go Lay. Let's 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 go Talaya. Come on, mama. Let's go Talaya. Let's go Talaya. Let's go Talaya. Let's go Talaya.
She ran out her shoe and had it.
Let's go.
She lost her shoe and had it.
Man, look, Talaya cleaned house with all them kids, like, man, and I was stressed watching it, because when she went back to go put the shoe back on, I was like, just run, because, you know, kids can win a race with one shoe on. I'm not gonna lie, this one kid beat my brother at track with some church shoes on. It was like, they were elementary kids. I don't know the backstory of why the kid was in his church shoes. Maybe he just came from service and he forgot to get his real shoes, so he had to run in those. But yeah, he literally had on, like, I don't know if they were like, what's that, what's the shoe brand? Stacy something. What is that shoe? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Stacey Adams. I don't know if it was Stacey Adams or Steve Adams or what, but that little boy had them thick black church shoes with the thick sole. That boy was running with that head down and still beat my brother at the race. They were like in 4th or 5th grade or something like that. I can't remember. But anyway, that's dope for her. She killed that. That's amazing to watch. And the fact that she came from so far behind, and not only that, but caught up and then cleaned house. Because like I said, a lot of folks would have just shut down and said, forget it. But that's amazing. Good for her. I can't wait to see what it is she's able to become as far as an athlete if she chooses to go that route. Yeah, that's really dope. I think I told this story in my podcast or the last episode, but in the years when I still did track, I remember I did all the jumps because I had these really long feet. I was a size 12, so I could jump for days. And so they had me doing like triple jump, long jump, hurdles. And they also had me do the high jump. And so, but I was really good at the hurdles because I was also kind of fast for like a little short, skinny kid. And so the way that my school was set up, it was 7th to 9th grade was junior high. 9th grade was technically high school on your transcript, but you were still in the junior high building. And so when it came to the sports, it was 7th to 9th grade. So 9th grade was varsity, JV was 8th and 7th, and some people in 8th who would have been really good might have got bumped up to varsity. And so when I was on JV, on the hurdles, cleaning house, just having me a good time, just winning up all my races, always getting 1st or 2nd. Every now and then I might slack off and get 3rd. Now, you know, I was feeling myself, couldn't tell me nothing. So they bumped me up to varsity. This is when I'm in 8th grade. And I didn't want to go to varsity because I wanted to keep winning, right? Because this is Washington State, and I knew when I got to varsity, the kids were bigger. And mind you, like half the kids I'd be racing would be like these kids from these old mountain towns. Like these were like mountain kids that chop wood for hobbies. These big old kids that are allegedly 13 or 14 or 15, but they look like they're 36. I mean, they already got like the receding hairline, full out sideburns, facial hair growing in, and you got little old me standing next to them looking like I'm 7.5. And so I just remember when I got put on varsity, I started losing all the races because, you know, I started going from like 1st and 2nd to like 5th and 6th in every race. So I was feeling some kind of way. So I remember I was telling my friend, I was like, look, man, we start this race because we were racing in a school called Mountain View, and I knew we were already about to lose because all of the kids were just huge, just big. I'm like, what are y'all eating, man? What's in y'all diet? Like, what they putting in y'all milk? But anyway, I was like, yeah, I'm tired of losing. So if we come out the blocks and they're just way up there, I'm gonna just pretend I'm hurt because I'm tired of losing. Like ego. Okay, look, I'm a Leo. Sometimes we be feeling ourselves. And so I told him like, yeah, I'm gonna just act like I'm hurt if I start losing. So we start the race, come out the blocks, boom. I thought I was doing something, and of course, I haven't even got to the hurdle yet. They're already past me. I'm like, damn. And so I'm getting ready to do my little injury. I kind of look over. My friend that I just told my plan to is on the ground. Ooh, holding her leg. Ooh. I'm like, so I had to lose the race. Well, I mean, we both lost, but I lost just because I wasn't fast enough. He lost just because he was injured. I was so pissed off that day. I was like, dang, man. I remember I was begging the coach, like, please just put me back on JV. I just want to win some more. And the coach was like, no, if you're going to have to challenge yourself and get better. That ain't how this works. Anyway, let's move on to the next subject. All right, for you R&B music heads, Diddy is launching another record label, and this is called Love Records. And the purpose of this label is pretty much to put out R&B music. So here's your opportunity, folks. Just read them contracts thoroughly. I did want to read a piece of the article. This article is coming from Rated R&B. And by the way, ratedrnb.com is a really, really great resource website in regards to R&B music. Like, it's a website that pretty much will give you insight and information about all of the up-and-coming R&B acts, as well as the seasoned acts and the acts that are current. Like, they pretty much, if you're an R&B artist and you have enough exposure, they are going to definitely put you out there on their website. And I think what I've always liked about reading them is, like I said, they're supportive with everyone. And so it's major artists, it's indie artists, it's up-and-coming artists, again, seasoned artists, younger art. Everybody gets love on Rated R&B. So that's a really great website. And they've been working really hard for like the last decade to really kind of ensure that, you know, a lot of these artists that we don't often get the same exposure to, you know, have some kind of exposure. So artists that you'd often hear on something like Music Choice, or you might see on BET Soul, a website like Rated R&B is already doing profiles on these artists so you can get to know them a bit more. But anyway, the piece I wanted to read from the article says, fast forward to 2022. Thanks to a recently inked deal with Motown Records, Combs now has a new boutique label focused exclusively on R&B called Love Records. At the new label, singles and collaborative projects will be issued by a range of artists, producers, and songwriters, according to the press release. Music has always been my first love. Love Records is the next chapter. It's about getting back to the love and making the best music of my life, said Combs in a statement. For the label, I'm focused on creating timeless R&B music with the next generation of artists and producers. Motown is the perfect partner for my album, and I'm excited to add to his legacy. I will say this. A lot of times when people say like, oh, I'm going to bring R&B back, or I'm going to bring it back, like, first of all, I think all of the music is there. We just don't know about it. And that's what I've always said in my R&B. R&B is dead serious. That's what I've always said the whole time. Like, the music is there. It's just not... And the weird thing is, it's also accessible. But so many of us just don't know about it because, again, the good stuff is the stuff that's in the trenches of the internet that you have to go and search for. And I think the challenge that so many people, as far as consumers, feel is like people just miss the days when, you know, you heard the good music just saturated all over the place all the time. Now it's kind of like, it's almost like a science project to go find the stuff. And, you know, so sometimes when people say, oh, I'm bringing it back, sometimes I feel like, dang, that's kind of a slap in the face to the people that have already been doing it. They just don't have the resources or the push or the pull to get more exposure. So maybe, hey, maybe this label's a good thing. But like I said, read them contracts, because Diddy, you got a history, sir. Like, I think we've done a few videos on you. But, you know, I think especially for artists coming up, there's always that challenge of deciding whether to go major or go indie. You know, if you go major, it's dope because you get the mainstream access to everything. You get the exposure. You get the arena tours. You're going to have the bigger budget videos. You're going to have a whole team of people working to make sure that you're successful and the cards hopefully align. Usually that's more so for hip hop and pop artists. R&B artists always still get the short end of the stick. But, you know, mainstream, major deal, you know, it's going to open doors. But in this modern time, you're probably going to have to sign a 360 deal just because revenue is not what it once was. And so they got to find ways to recoup for all of the advancements and stuff that they're going to put in your project. And so, yeah, you're going to probably have to tour a lot and do merch deals and stuff to kind of make up the money that was spent on your project. But in the end, you get the big fame. But on the other side, there's the indie route where you have pretty much 100% creative freedom because, you know, like on a major label, you don't just get to go and do whatever you want. They're going to be like, nah, that's not quite the image we want for you. And this is the producer you should work with. We're going to put you with this producer that's produced for everybody else. And that's why all y'all stuff sound the same. So go get in the studio right now. And if you don't like the song, we're going to give it to the next artist. All right. But anyway, with the indie, at least you kind of get creative freedom. But you do have to kind of pay everything up front. You don't have the major teams pushing behind you. A lot of indie acts just really fight to get a distribution deal. And then they have to pay for everything else. But they get all of their money, right? As opposed to on a major label, you get the money on the back end after all the debt has been paid, if you get any. And you also on major, don't worry about getting a lot of publishing and royalties. That's you can forget about that. So yeah, the indie world, you get a lot more creative freedom. You get all of the royalties and publishing a lot of times, but you don't get that mainstream exposure. So I think a lot of time, unless you're already a mainstream established act who decides to leave the major label and go indie. So like a Mary J. Blige who just dropped a project, which is actually really good, by the way. I love that album. You know, she's indie now, but because her accolades are so high and she's built such a massive career while she was signed to a major label, she can come out with independent projects and be just fine. You know, Janet did that as well with her last album. You know, an independent project goes to like #1 and sells however much it sold. And so, you know, indie can work, but it just depends on what your resources look like. So yeah, I feel like for people, there's some options. Figure out what you want to do if that's really what you're into. But man, I do think like if you're going to be signed to a Diddy label, if Diddy can promote you the way he promotes himself, you'll be all right. Because even with the article, it was saying like the first project that's going to come out of the label will be his project. Like, look, Diddy's always known how to market himself. I always think back to when he had Diddy Dirty Money. And, you know, they had released the album. Like, man, first of all, almost every song on the project had a music video. And they performed Hello, Good Morning on every show you can think of. Every show you can think of. I mean, every award show, daytime show, nighttime show, college, homecoming show. They were going to be there. And by the way, that was a really nice album, too. Last Train to Paris was dope. Like, that probably was one of my favorite albums from 2010. That, along with Jasmine Sullivan's Love Me Back, were probably my two favorite projects that had come out at the time. But, man, Diddy was everywhere performing Hello, Good Morning. And I mean, pyrotechnics and dancers and cars would come on the stage. I was like, man, you performing this more than J-Lo was doing on the floor in 2011, 2012. Because, you know, like I said, if there's a stage, J-Lo gonna be there. Where y'all need me at? AMAs, she gonna be there. People's Choice Awards, she gonna be there. The Billboard Awards, I'm gonna be there. Grammys, she gonna be there. Inauguration, she gonna be there. And change the lyrics to the song so she can put Let's Get Loud in the mix. Like, J-Lo gonna be there. Like, Diddy, if you can get the kind of marketing he does for himself, you'd be all right. But, again, there's a track record that's there. And a lot of us are still feeling some kind of way. You broke up Danity Kane while they were right at the cusp of going into that next level. You broke them up on TV, right on the TV show. Anyway, moving on. For you Toni Morrison fans, HBO is going to be launching a limited series based around the book Sula. All right, I'm sure that's going to be really dope because Sula was off the chain in that book. I don't know if you read that book, but that's a really fun read. So it would kind of be dope if they would actually do some of the additional Toni Morrison novels. So like, it would be kind of dope if they did like Bluest Eye, Tar Baby, Jazz, you know, every Songs of Solomon. That would be kind of cool if they did something like that. I don't know if that's something they're interested in doing, but you know, Toni Morrison has this vast collection of literature that just goes into all of these different spaces. One of my good friends, this girl Chanel, is kind of who got me into Toni Morrison back in the day. And so, you know, it would be really dope to see, you know, what happens with Sula. So that would be an interesting watch. I'll definitely love to watch that and actually probably do reviews of the episodes because I haven't really done TV or movie reviews in a really good minute. But that would be something I'd love to review and talk about. I want to shift gears here because I know a lot of people have been asking for my 2 cents in regards to everything that's happening around women's reproductive rights. For my blood pressure and my patience tonight, I think I'm going to save that conversation for a live because I just need to be in my pocket and just get it all out. Because when I can do a live, I can rant about it for like 20, 30, 40 minutes and ain't nobody going to say nothing. But I will say this. This is not the time to all of a sudden check out in regards to what's happening around you, especially in politics. This is not the time to be so frustrated where you're just like, I don't care anymore. It is what it is. This ain't going to affect me, so on and so forth. And we're just going to turn a blind eye. Or, you know, if you're somebody who's really a one issue voter where there's only one thing you care about and to hell with everybody else and everything else, just understand that what you're witnessing is pretty much a power grab, right? You have people who represent the old guard who don't want to let go. and they're going to do any and everything in their power to hold on to what they can. And because there's so much corruption in our politics, there's so much money in our politics. I've always said our politics are always going to be chaotic in this country until money is taken out. And when I say money being taken out, I'm talking about the fact that most politicians who make it to the big stage, to me, the big stage is governor, the House, Senate, you know, these top-notch president, these top-notch, you know, positions that, you know, you start to get that big media attention and there's millions going into your campaigns. When I say money into politics, I'm talking about the people who make it to the big stage, and they've made it to the big stage because so many corporations and lobbying groups and people behind the scenes and PACs have put so much money into these people to get to where they are, with the promise of, hey, once you get in, you're going to ensure that these things that I have paid and bought you out for, you're going to make sure you do. We're going to make sure that we're going to give you this big buyout, and you're never going to challenge big oil. You're never going to challenge the gas companies. You're never going to challenge big banks. You're never going to challenge some of these corporations. You're going to make sure that the tax loopholes ensure that the super rich stay super rich. You're going to ensure that we don't do anything to the tax codes to mess up anything to make sure that the rich folks can get all their write-offs. We're going to make sure that we keep everything deregulated. Not too much regulation on what the really wealthy people are doing. We want to make sure that all of that still stays the same. And also at the same time, we're going to make sure you harp on to the idea of latching on to religious values to ensure that white evangelicals feel content with you being in office. So while you screw them over and screw over all of America, it's okay because you love Jesus. You know, like that's literally what politics is right now in this country. And don't even get me started when we talk about the military industrial complex and how it just goes on and goes on. And so there's a lot of shenanigans going on. And so there's currently a power grab where, again, the old guard is doing everything they can to hold on to power. And they can do it because it's so easy for them to go and get new people that are willing to sacrifice all of their values and morals for $1. All it takes is one good check, and they're willing to just, you know, throw things under the bus and act like nothing happened and vote against certain policy that the people want or don't want. You know what I mean? And so it's at a place where we have so many elected officials who could care less about what their constituents want, what the people want. It doesn't matter what polls are saying. It doesn't matter what 70% of Americans want. They don't care. That check is in the mail. It's about to clear. So they're going to do what they said to that small group of people who are keeping the money lined in their pockets. You have to just look at where the money's coming from. Like, look at the fact that somebody like Ron DeSantis is worth like $52 million. How? He wasn't worth that before he became governor. Somebody's in his pocket. You know what I mean? A lot of our people in Congress, like Mitch McConnell, when you look at the net worth this man has, you know, his family already kind of had some money and the wife and all, but the money that comes in to some of these people is like chaos. Like, they are so bought out. So many people are in their pockets, and it's the corporations that really run our policy at this point. And the other thing that's so funny, because again, they keep trying to latch on to all of the super heavy religious values. And listen, I'm not about to tell people how to live their life. Do what you do. But again, this is a country that is supposed to be separation of church and state. So it should not matter what it is that you believe spiritually or religiously when it comes to what the politics are. And even with that, all of these folks be lying and pretending that they're all of a sudden so holier than thou when they go and try to make these laws, when half these people have paid for their mistresses and daughters and wives to go to them same clinics that they want to shut down. And the other thing is, in the result of, say, you know, this becomes something that's no longer protected and all these states start stripping away all the different rights, so on and so forth, these wealthy politicians and people up top will still go and get, you know, the services that they want to get. The abortions, they're going to still have a way to go and do it. It's just going to be everybody else who's collateral. I know that's a very unique, not even unique, but a tricky topic to cover. But there's a documentary that I think is a really good watch that you could probably check out that kind of paints a picture of what it's like to be on the other side when life happens and you end up in a situation and you're unsure of what to do. Because the other thing is, these laws are so cruel. Like, even the conversation of like rape and incest, there's not even exceptions like that. When we're talking about how this got to the Supreme Court, this is centered around the Mississippi case, right? And with the Mississippi law that was put out there, it was like, you know, no services, period, even in cases of rape or incest. Absolutely not. Almost to the point where even if it's like something that endangers the mother's life, so be it. You know, that's literally how cruel the bill is. And so there's a documentary called Trapped, and it's by a director named Don Porter. And it's a very interesting watch because it talks about what was happening in Texas a few years ago, even before the laws that changed in Texas within the last 2 years. This was talking about Texas in like 2013, 14, 15, 16. and just what was happening. And it follows young girls that are like 12 or 13 who have been sexually assaulted, who have been raped, and are now pregnant, and they do not have access to, make the decisions that they want to make because of what laws were being put into play and how difficult those in power were making it for people to go and get these services. And so, again, that's a very interesting watch. I'm going to go a little bit more in depth on a live video because I want to kind of be in my pocket when I talk about it. But yeah, I just say, because I'll be honest, I am a pro-choice person. I'm not really a fan of the idea of an abortion, but I am never going to be in a capacity to have to ever get one. So who am I to try to tell people what to do? And I don't think, especially as men, understanding what women have to go through when it comes to carrying a child to term. And even when you're just talking about the physical complications and the health issues for some people. And, for a lot of people, it's literally a death sentence for some people. And so they have no choice but to sadly terminate a pregnancy. Or a lot of people, they're in a financial space where they can't afford any more kids. And yeah, even people who had went and got, the tubes tied or got the IAD, whatever thing is called, or IUD thing, and still got pregnant. People try and do what it is that they can do, and things happen, and they just feel they're not in a space to really go and, they can't raise another child. It's just not there. And when people always say, well, you can always adopt. Listen, every day there's 400,000 kids in the adoption system that are waiting to be adopted, and ain't nobody taking none of them. So cut the crap. And especially as kids get older, once they hit a certain age, especially after about age 6, it's harder for them to find a family. And when they get to the teenage years, forget about it. And then, of course, once they get old enough, they get pushed out of the system, and they're out pretty much in the street, and they have to figure out life for themselves. And so it's just, I think people have to look from multiple angles. I think multiple things can be true at once, but we're in a space where everybody's become so judgmental and just cruel. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of things taking place that are very just interesting in regards to politics. And that's why I'm saying this is not the time to all of a sudden just check out. You know what I mean? Because pretty much in regards to my conversation about that power grab that people are trying to have, that power grab is also including the idea of cementing certain things and ensuring that once certain people are in groups of or elements of power, they don't have to worry about it being taken away. Because so even when you're talking about what's happening with the elections, there's some very extreme people getting into some high positions that are going to play a role into some of these elections that come up in 2022, 2024, 2026, 2028. And so this is not the time to check out. And again, even if you are not somebody who supports the idea of women having the choice to do what it is that they want to do, recognize that there's other things that are also taking place in this country in regards to how it affects the people. And so this is not the time to check out. So I need you to check back in. Get acquainted and alert with the people that are running for different positions. And again, not even just the big ones, but a lot of those local positions are important. Look at what's been happening in the schools. Look at what's happening in healthcare. Look at what's happening in housing. Look at what's happening with the economy and banking. And look, there's so much that's happening. So again, this is not the time to pretend that if you just stop caring, you won't be affected, because you will. Whether you want to believe it or not, things are shifting day. But look at how we're pissed off about the gas prices being high. You can pretend that you don't care, but if you're somebody who drives, it affects you. If you don't drive, it still affects you, because even with the trucks that got to go and pick up all of these different things in the shipments, with the gas getting high, everything else gets high. Now the food is extra high. Like everything is chaos. So this is not the time to all of a sudden check out. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, moving on. And then somebody was asking me my 2 cents about Antonio Brown's statements about something about racism not existing. He was on some little podcast show and pretty much saying, well, I'm rich and whatever else. Listen, I'm sorry. The NFL players, I don't want to hear anything from, because they done all been knocked upside the head a little bit too much. So when it comes to their opinions on politics, I don't even really give it any energy. I'm good. Like, y'all be in whatever little cuckoo bubble y'all want to be in and enjoy. On a different note, somebody was asking me my thoughts on Wendy Williams and what was happening with her, because I haven't really talked about her like that either. But like I said before, I don't think she's well. I still don't. And so, at this point, she is no longer on her show. She was having a bunch of different situations and complications taking place. They started having these celebrity guests fill in, and then they announced that Sherry Shepherd would be taking over the Wendy Williams show in the fall. But Wendy Williams has been doing recent interviews saying, oh no, she's going to still be there, and so on and so forth. So people are a little confused about what's what. And I just think that Wendy Williams thinks that she's going to be at that specific show in September and hasn't realized that no, you're not going to be, because at this point, even the agencies and some of the people that represent the companies and stuff that you work for have moved on, and it's kind of a wrap. I do think there will be other opportunities for Wendy to jump into something else, but I think because her track record for the last few years has been very up and down, no major network is going to want to take a risk right now, because it's just like you know, every few months she has to step out because something is going down, or there's a complication, or there's the allegations of other things taking place, and then the personal issues. It's like, man, because even when she came out with the documentary after the movie came out, I knew then watching that I was like, no, she is not where she needs to be yet, and y'all shouldn't have put her in a documentary with all this, because clearly all of this stuff is still affecting her as far as the marriage and everything else that happened. Because it was like, you know, they literally started the documentary, and Wendy is already a crier. She's always crying all the time, but it's like, you would think if you're going to be in a documentary, you don't want to come off a little too disheveled or on your own documentary. And so I was like, yeah, I don't think she's well. I wish her well, but I do think there will be opportunities that come for her. I've been seeing some rumblings about her possibly going into the podcasting world, and I think honestly that would suit her better at this point, kind of going back to almost her radio days, but more so on a podcast, because she just seemed a little out of it even in the last few years of the show. When I would see an episode or two, you know, she'd forget everything, or she'd randomly burp or fart or whatever else was happening, and then you almost get nervous and you're afraid that every time she stands up she's going to pass out or something. So, you know, we'll see how that works for her, but, you know, listen, everybody's human. Things happen. Even people who are wealthy will have health complications and different things, and it just shows that none of us are invincible from anything, no matter how much we have, or who we are, where we come from, or who we're associated with. And so, you know, I wish her well. But yeah, there's that. And then as far as Young Thug, I'm a little checked out, and I'm checked out because we've had this conversation over and over. Every time one of these public figures get in trouble, we literally have this conversation. And it's crazy because you would think that after we saw what happened with Bobby Shmurda and how he was treated, that would kind of be the wake-up call for a lot of people to really kind of just clean house with certain things that they partake in, allegedly. And so, you know, you have Young Thug, who he and 28 others have been indicted on like 56 counts, and I just read that they actually added some additional counts to Young Thug because when they went and raided the house, they found additional weapons and some other stuff. And so, I mean, these counts, you know, they range from like conspiracy to violate RICO laws, conversations around murder and robbery and all kind of things, possibly having connections with the attempted murder of YF and Lucci. And then again, there was a car that's somehow tied to them in regards to a man named Donovan Thomas Jr. that had died back in 2015. I'm just like, all right. And so for me, you already know you live in America. You live in a country that already has it out for black men to begin with. And so you would recognize that the game that you're playing is a very dangerous one, because the country already has it out for you. You know what I mean? The country, like, this is a country that they don't have it out for the crooked politicians that do all the terrible things that they do. And again, multiple things can be true at once, but they never have it out for the people who really need to do some time for some of the corruption and the things that they've done, where the people have been collateral on a macro scale to the nonsense of things that really wealthy and powerful people have done that have affected so many people globally. But, you know, they're always going to have smoke for these entertainers. And so, again, when it comes to people that are rappers or athletes or public figures or whatever it is, for me, it's kind of like the fact that you've been in a position to be the exception, where you get paid buku amounts of money to literally do art, make music, play a sport, you know, design clothes, whatever it is that you do, and then y'all still purposely go out of your way to do some hard living when you don't have to. It's just like, I don't get it. I said this about 6ix9ine when he kept getting caught up in all his nonsense, and you saw the way he caved real quick when it was time to go to court. No, that's not really my lifestyle. That's just how I just make the music, but it doesn't fit me. And then as soon as they let him back out, now he's back out to trolling and pretending he still has street cred. But whatever. He's another conversation. I never really rocked with him like that. But again, it's just crazy because it's like you get these opportunities to do things that most people will never have the luxury to do, as far as making millions to just make music. You know what I mean? Because people, even the idea in this country at this moment, even a 9 to 5 is almost a luxury, because for a lot of people, they don't even get the luxury to have that kind of schedule where there's a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday and you get to be off on weekends and you get to kind of live your life a little bit. There's so many people who have sporadic work schedules where they have multiple jobs, or even if they have one job, you know, there's not a locked in schedule that's always going to be 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. They might work 3 a.m. to 8 a.m. and then 3 hours later they got to come back in and work in the afternoon and so on and so forth. And so they can't even plan things like vacations, or, you know, they can't plan to go to night school because their schedule's too sporadic, and they can't plan to do certain things, or when it comes to childcare. Like, so many people have so much they deal with. So when it comes to celebrities that have wealth and money and a lot of opportunity, again, to just make art and live your life and get rich from doing something that you love, it's hard for me to really rally behind you and want to bring up the troops, especially when, on the flip side, when you were put in front of the cameras and they asked you, hey, there's a whole lot going on in this country right now in regards to police brutality and what just happened with Mike Brown and so on and so forth, and your response is, well, you know, let them go ahead and handle that. We iced out. We making money. We doing music. We living good over here. Now all of a sudden, there's this movement where all of a sudden you got to free so and so, and so now I'm supposed to go back and now I'm supposed to do a video and talk about how the system is corrupt and blah 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 blah. And it's like, you see how this stuff works full circle. This is why I talk about like the ideas of collective community and everything. It works full circle. It's a give and take kind of thing. At least that's how I see it. And so I hope that he is able to align and maybe God, you know, willing, things are just one big misunderstanding, because we do know that our policing system is corrupt. We know that a lot of times they have no problem framing people, but it's like, y'all got so much evidence on y'all. I'm like, dang, man. And again, it's also about understanding associations too. I always tell my teenagers I work with, like, things you do in your past are always going to come back to get you if it's something that had a very negative outcome. And so what it seems like is a lot of the things that they're getting him for are things from years ago. And again, we don't even know if he's actually done any of these things. This is all alleged. But again, just because of the associations and the choices that have been made, they're going to try to build the biggest case they can. And again, we already know that they already use your lyrics against you on everything. They do that with a lot of rappers. And now I think stuff like that, this is where I start thinking about the record labels, because then I'm like, well, I want to see where the labels stand at, because, you know, they've created an environment where, as a rapper, you're only going to get signed to a major deal and get some major push if you're pushing a certain kind of image, because if you're too cheesy, they're going to claim you're not marketable. They're going to put you in the Will Smith bucket. You know what I mean? And so I want to see where these labels stand, because a lot of times these labels will gas up and put these entertainers out there and really hope that they push the envelope in regards to what it is that they push in regards to their image. Then when they get in trouble, the labels want to drop them and, oh, we have no associations with them. That doesn't represent who we are, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but it doesn't really fit how your marketing strategy is with all these different rappers. It's okay, I guess. And so it's just like, man, come on. You know you live in America and how they do us. And you know you live in Georgia with the politics over there. And the other thing is, like, for a lot of these entertainers, recognize that y'all are new money. Old money hates new money. Old money is the demographic that carries the power in regards to law and legislation and the prison industrial complex and the judicial system. It's old money and all kind of connections and loopholes and everything else that's all tied together from old money. And so just because you're new money, it does not make you exempt from how old money runs this country. And so it's kind of like recognizing that all eyes are on you when you come into new money, because society's already in a space where they think you're not supposed to have what you have. You know, again, you are the exception. You know what I mean? And so once you become a wealthy black individual in this country, eyes are on you all the time. And so it's just like, you would think that after all these years, that would have been something you would have kind of understood. And so the associations and the people you run with, you would have thought that would have changed. Because again, when you get the opportunity to just literally make millions for doing music and touring, not only do you get to help yourself, you get to help your family, you get to bring your friends up, and your friends that have different talents, you can put them on and help them climb. But instead, y'all want to do some nonsense and some bull. You know, somebody help me understand. I hope I'm not coming off as judgmental, but man, it's just, for the life of me, it would be different if Young Thug was the very first rapper, athlete, entertainer, public figure, social luxury figure to get in this kind of space where they got in this kind of trouble. But it's like, we've seen so many, and you've seen that same cycle repeat. So it's like, you would think that at this point, recognize how this operates. Because even Gunna, you know, he has one charge that's probably going to get thrown out most likely. And I just saw, who's the guy that just pled guilty to the racketeering charge and is, you know, facing 60 years in prison. It's like, y'all are throwing your lives away when you don't have to. Like, man, Casanova. It's like, y'all are, dang, man. You know what I mean? I don't like to see, I want so much for us. So when I have to see people just constantly deal with, you know, things that make it make sense. Just make it make sense. You know what I mean? And from what I've been reading, because it was like an 88-page document. I wasn't reading through all that, but I was like, they got so much stuff. Like, dang. And again, this is all alleged. We know that the system can be corrupt, and sometimes they have no problem framing people. But it's like, with that, just recognize the people you run with can be your downfall. You know what I mean? The things that you do that you may think you're invincible or exempt from, it can come back to you in so many different ways, in so many different forms. And so it's like, man. And as they keep unfolding and uncovering things, they keep linking past incidents and robberies and murders to different people that still have connections today. I'm like, okay, all right, so we'll see how this unfolds. You know, it's kind of sad. I hate that so many just they end up in these situations. I'm like, dang, man, what y'all doing? You know, I had to, even in the field that I work in, sometimes no matter how much you put in to the community and to the center and to the kids and to their family, there's always going to be them handful that just somehow they sprinkle in between the cracks and fall into some shenanigans, and now you got to go to the court cases and everything else. And it's like, dang, sometimes it kind of eats you up inside because you feel like you did something wrong, when in reality you did everything right. And it's just, you planted the seeds, they just didn't choose to water them, or they're not going to water them until much later, and eventually their cars will align as they get older. But sometimes that eats you up a little bit. And so we'll see how it goes, but man, that's a lot. Anyway, with all the chaos that's taking place around the world, please find ways to stay sane and stay safe. Anyway, I'm out. Share your 2 cents. Subscribe.
Open up your eyes to see the sun. Denial, begun with just a simple timeline. I'm never giving up, never giving up.